Golf's no different from hockey. Requires talent, self-discipline.
Golf requires goofy pants and a fat ass. You should talk to my neighbor, the accountant, probably a great golfer, huge ass.
How do you measure yourself with other golfers? By height.
It's a very, very special honor.
I'm Paula Creamer, and you're listening.
Well, we're waiting.
Hi, this is Martin Cove, a.k.a. John Kreese from Cobra Kai, and you're listening to
Quiet, Please.
Let the word go out from here across the land. Let Daddy Noonan approve.
Hi, boys. Nice day for golf, isn't it? Quiet, please. Oh, you got secrets, eh?
Hey, this is Shooter McGavin. You're listening to the...
Hey, you guys. Hey, we're trying to have a podcast over here.
And welcome back once again to Quiet Please, the Golf Pod on the Pew. And we have our little panel discussion weekly where we bring some of the most talented and experienced people in the industry right here into our virtual living room. And we toss around a few questions. As always, joining me to my left, hailing now from the Bourbon Country, but Boston Bob Baldessari. Bobby, how we doing?
We are wicked cold this evening.
Wicked chilly. Yes, I have my fleece on. I agree.
And that's why they make bourbon.
That is why they make bourbon. You know who does not need the fleece is Mr. Andy Hydorn to my bottom right, hailing down in Houston. Yeah, you do. Yeah, what's up with that? I don't understand that.
I'm sweating a little bit on the inside.
Yeah, I'm not sweating over here. 10 degrees this morning. So, and rounding out the panel, I'm excited about this. I enjoyed watching him play the PGA Tour. I'm more enjoying reading some of his swing theories. Bradley Hughes, welcome to Quiet Please, the Golf Podcast, sir.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it. Get a lot of stuff answered and maybe throw some theories and certainly some lobs into the equation that people might not understand or make them think.
I'll tell you what, right out of the gate, I'm going to get to my plea in a moment, but right out of the gate, I can tell you the trophies you have, if you're watching the live show, the trophies that Bradley has behind him, they are quite larger than the Danny Noonan-esque the trophy that I won back at Junior Club Champions.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. These two here are the Australian Masters that I won, so I got them in my special place here.
That's awesome.
As you should. So we'll just dive right into it, Andy. I know we were discussing some of the things we've had this one penciled on the calendar for a while now. Bradley's now moved from obviously playing career into more the instruction side, but I want to hear everything. I mean, I want to hear about the Australian Masters. I want to hear about life on tour. Andy, take the lead on this one.
Yeah. So the first question that I want to ask, and I think it's not fair to say you're a victim of circumstance, but you came up playing some pretty damn good golf, but there were also a couple of other Australians that were playing some pretty damn good golf at the same time. Greg Norman and Steve Elkington, amongst others too. And, I think you may have gotten looked over a little bit by the success that you've had in your career based on what some of those other guys, did in their career too. So what are your thoughts on as a whole, your playing career and how good you feel about what you did?
Well, if you had to ask me when I was 12 or 13 years old, what I'd be doing now and what had happened, I would have taken it. Pardon me. Overall, though, I didn't win a lot, or I didn't win enough. I won like 7 tournaments, proper tournaments. Had a bunch of seconds. I think I came second in almost every state open in Australia, the Victorian Open, New South Wales Open, Tasmanian Open. So I had a lot of seconds there. I played, my main prowess was the longer club. So I was very good off the tee, very good with fairway woods. I've had several people tell me one of the best fairway wood players they'd ever seen. That's coming from top-notch players and from like rules officials and people in the know. So that was kind of my forte. Unfortunately, the closer I got to the green, I wasn't as good. I was okay. I was a good chipper and runner of the ball, basically from growing up in Melbourne. I was a good bunker player from growing up in Melbourne. If anyone watched the Australian Open, you can see the firm ground where you could bounce the ball up, and then the bunkers were so deep and the green's so firm, you had to learn to flop it up in the air and stop it pretty quick. I was a decent putter. I wasn't a great putter. I was very good from inside 5 or 6 feet, and I was very good at 2-putting. But in the mid-range, I was a little bit off, so I didn't make as many putts as you could. And because my prowess was hitting a lot of greens in regulation, you're not going to hit every shot inside 5 or 6 feet and finish them off. So, you know, I'd have a lot of 15 to 20 footers in a round and didn't make as many as I could have. So when I putted good, I normally featured in the running at the end of the tournament. So I'd say that was my worst part. I think I had a little bit of a letdown in pitching with loft. I think I had a poor technique. I didn't understand bounce on a club. Growing up in Melbourne, the fairways were hard, so we kind of dug down at the ball. And when I got to America, that didn't work as well on the soft grass. You had to be a lot wider with your swing, maybe have more bounce on your club with the softer turf conditions. So that took me a while to kind of work out. And I did have a few mishaps in my personal life that, you know, one of the, I haven't said this very often, but one of the reasons I moved to America is I was right at the peak of my career in the mid-90s, and I found out that my child, who was 2.5 years old, actually wasn't mine. So that kind of put a big stall on my mental capacity. I mean, I think I did really well. Within a year of that finding out, I got my card on tour. So it was pretty big, but there was always those things that, you know, held you back just that little bit. And I think that was one big thing. I think that's one of the big critiques too about when people, you know, start saying, well, he's not playing well, he's doing this. There's more to it than just golf and golf swing. There's a lot of other stuff. And, you know, a few people knew that, not many did. I didn't think it was worth sharing that with everyone. Didn't want sympathy for it. I just wanted to try and battle away and do my best. So I think that was one of the reasons that, you know, I didn't trust as many people as maybe I could have because of what happened. So I became a bit more of a loner. Sometimes I didn't want to work at it. You know, you'd have those days. So that was one thing that made it a bit more difficult. But on the golf aspect, besides what I've already said, I think growing up in Australia, the courses, as you saw, were firm and fast. So I was used to hitting shots that would work their way up to the hole. And when I came over to America, it was like, now I've got to change my whole plan. Now I've got to hit it past the hole and like spin them back. And that was kind of a little bit not in my vision or my mental. I couldn't see those shots as well. So I think all things considered, I did pretty well. I wish I had a 1 on the PGA Tour. I came second a couple of times, third a few times. I didn't win. I probably could have or should have, but it didn't pan out. I won on the Corn Ferry or whatever it's called now. But it would have been nice to have won on the PGA Tour. I think I was definitely good enough. But sure. It just didn't happen.
So let me ask you about the putting thing. You know, you mentioned that you're pretty good from 5 feet and under, and you're a good 2-putter.
Because I was good at 5 foot and in, I was a good 2-putter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you feel like you had trouble putting, or it was just you weren't quite there? Like there's a difference between people who are poor putters and people just who don't make enough putts. Where do you say you fit in there?
I agree with that. That's a good estimation. I think I was a decent putter. I just didn't make them, and it's probably more of my putts than the line. You know, the line was fine. You know, you're not going to, if you're that type of level golfer, you're not going to miss putts by too far. The only thing that makes you look stupid is if your speed is off. But I would have a lot of putts slip out or die near the hole, and I think that was a speed thing. You know, it took me way into my teaching career to understand how to putt better, and I putt better now than I ever did. because I came up with my own little method, which I'm not going to share. You got to pay the big bucks for that one. But it's I've got way better at my speed, and now I consistently make those mid-range putts that I couldn't make. And I think, I didn't have a lot of tuition growing up. I was very self-made. I walked around practice rounds with Greg Norman. I watched him. I actually talked to him a lot. I'd learn things off him, and I'd go home and practice it. And that's how my swing was built. I didn't really have anyone that I modeled a short game on. So I think I just took stuff from books and what I heard on TV or things like that, match your stroke this far for this length part or such and such. So I don't think I had as good a method to building on my short game stuff. I was good, but I wasn't elite, which would have taken me to that higher level of success. But
it seems to me now there are so many, not so many, but there's a handful of really good short game coaches out there now that I don't know that back in the 90s that there was certainly not people teaching the same stuff that they're teaching now. And it just seems like maybe the amount of study in that part of the game wasn't really there yet.
Yeah, and I think, you've got all those TrackMans and quads and all that are giving you numbers, and you kind of, maybe not all of them are correct for every person, but they're giving someone a baseline to understand when they hit their good shots and when they're not as good, what's going on. And, we didn't have that. Even learning, I didn't even have a video camera. I had hardly any footage of my swing from growing up unless I was on TV or something like that. So I didn't know how I swung. I had no clue what it looked like. I just judged it all off the ball and off the divot and my feeling of what I was doing and things like that. So I think I wouldn't say the players today are better than the players in my era. I think they have less chance of falling off the rails, if you can put it that way, because they now have their understanding through all these technological things, what they do when they play well, and if it gets off, they can get it back there much quicker than we could, where it was more trial and error.
Bradley, do you think that's because the player of yesteryear was more? Again, I'll reference your website. I was reading some of the comments on there. Is look at all the great swings over time. There was all these unique swings, and yet I run a course in New Jersey in addition to doing some other things, and the players I see out there, the young players, it's all the same kind of cookie cutter move.
It is. Yeah, you're right. There's a big fascination with rotating open, jumping away from the ground, bowing the wrist, all these things that kind of happens. I would say something like that kind of happened in the early to mid 90s when Ledbetter became famous for Nick Price and Nick Faldo. And before that, there wasn't as much instruction-based stuff that you would get. Like you wouldn't get a coach on a YouTube or even on television talking about what they're doing with a player. So now, once Ledbetter came along and got famous, that was kind of the evolution of, he wrote some books, he did some videos, everyone started setting the club early, big muscles, all that type of thing. And then that obviously just continued on. It's kind of one of the things that I've always not argued about, but with Tiger Woods, like, in my opinion, I'd want someone to be good, like able to do something, maybe not as good as me, but on my equal, or maybe be able to do something better than me in some certain areas. But when you're Tiger Woods, who can teach Tiger Woods? Like, he does everything better than everyone. So why is he listening to all these other people that can't hold a candle to what he's doing? I think Butch was good because Butch was a good player. He won on tour. His dad was a Masters champion. He hung on words of Hogan and Jackie Burke just from being around the house with his father. So he had a lot of experience. So I think that's a big thing. I think that's one of the best things that I bring to the table, is that when I work with PGA players, they understand that not only do I kind of know what I'm talking about because we get, good success, I've been through it playing. So I understand when they're on the 72nd hole, what's going on in their brain and what's going to work for them to maintain that level that they don't choke or put a bad swing on it or lose their force in their legs or something like that. So I think, that's kind of what happened. There's been an explosion, obviously, with YouTube, but basically, when that first came out, all you needed was a camera, an internet connection, and maybe an app that you could draw lines on. And that's kind of all you saw. And people would become experts just based on that. So I think that was one of the hardest things for Tiger is that, I think I could have taught Tiger quite well because even though he's way better than me, I did beat him a few times. So obviously I can hit a few shots better than him. Maybe my fairway woods, I don't know. But I mean, I think that's all relative too. Like when you're a beginner, anyone's going to be better than you, right? So you can take lessons off your local pro and you think they're awesome. I did that when I was a young kid. But I think as your standard progresses, you've got to find someone that can do it, explain it, or at least show you the recommendations by data or whatever you want to call all that stuff, that you can continue to stay on the cusp of it, never deteriorate, and maybe improve. And also, it's important for a player to have their own spin on things. So they have to understand what they're doing internally themselves. I've never tried to just say to a person, this is what you've got to do. I will show them something that we're working on or explain why. And then, I used to get kind of laughed at a little bit by some people when I'd go to a tournament, work with my pros. I'd just sit up on a big chair behind them and just kind of stand there and have a coffee. And I wouldn't say a lot because for the most part, we've already done all the work. It's just my eyes watching him. And then it's, maybe they might react to a shot and go, what happened there? I go, well, you know what happened there. Well, this is the same thing that generally happens over and over. So I'm just a little sounding board and a thing. And I think that's important playing a tournament is that you don't want to be overhauling everything when you're at a tournament. That's kind of done on weeks off.
Well, let me chime in again because I'm gonna bring Bobby in. But this was one of the takeaways. Again, I was enjoying reading your website today. But one of the things you meant, I think, to paraphrase it, it says about basically the modern swing versus we'll say the classical types golf swing, and the player of all of our eras, we'll say, being able to make it work even in mid-round or getting back, when the modern player sometimes goes off the rail, and Bobby, you're still giving instructions at your place all the time. When the modern player goes off the rail, I'd be interested in all your opinions. Do they get back to there faster, or can the guy that understands his golf swing from our era, can they make it work? Does that make sense? Andy, you're looking at me peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
How can you even see my face? It's so
I can barely see your face.
Go ahead, Bobby.
You want me to answer that? Yeah, but I have a couple questions for Bradley. But I mean, to me, my dad was a PGA professional 53 years, Bradley. So I grew up under his tutelage. And I remember being, I think I was 17. I could just drive, came back from, Andy knows this, the Hornblower. It's an amateur, pretty good amateur event in Massachusetts. And I said to my dad, I think I figured something out today. I learned how to rescue around because I heard my dad's generation say that, hey, I started with 3 over after 4 holes, but I rescued it. And to Alan's point, it was knowing your swing. But I don't know. I tell some of the kids and people I work with, I go, if you had the first 5, 6 holes or the front 9 was awful, like you believe in Santa Claus, if you get on that next hole and you just say, this is the first hole of the round, and maybe you got a fresh swing thought or something. But if you know you're swinging, you can tweak a little. But then I think it's a mental exercise too, to just say, you know what, right now, I don't know what happened behind me, but from right now moving forward, I'm even par. I'm going to play.
I have a thought on that too, and hidden talent in some of the better players is that, there's a kind of a troubleshooting list that people have. I know some guys that are really, really, really good amateur golfers that don't know the first thing about what they're doing when they're going wrong. Like they don't even know where to begin to look to fix it. And, you know, there's the good and the bad to that. But I think, you know, if you have a list of troubleshooting based on what's going on, I think you're ahead of the game and you're able to rescue around and get yourself back on track.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really good things about my drill series that I teach people. I train the muscular stuff to work. So it's not actually thoughts, it's more training the muscles to be able to perform, whether it's a range of motion, whether it's a speed thing, whether it's a force or pressure or what have you. So based on what Andy just said there, I know if I'm pulling or pushing the ball, my entry is off. So I go back to my first drill and I get the club where I know it has to be, and I rehearse my practice swing from there. If I'm hooking the ball, I know my post-impact, my body work is not good. My body's stalling and my hands and arms are taken over. So then I rehearse the post-impact stuff. And, you know, not only do I know the fix from experience, it makes it really simple that if I do hit a couple of those shots in a row, I'm not trying to swing 27-3B, or, you know, it's that's it just ties down to that. So I'm not searching for things. I know the answer already. I just have to reinvent it again, because everyone has tendencies. Like, for the most part, a golfer, they'll have a tendency that might creep in when they're 15 or 16, and it's always there. They're not trying to eradicate it because it's going to always show its head again, rear its head. They just know how to manage it. So that's kind of the thing. And to your point, you know, this is a great example that I tell a lot of the kids I work with, is that at the 97 US Open, you know, I was playing pretty decent, and I had a couple of 3-putts early. I whiffed a ball out of the rough trying to play a flop shot. I hit Mr. Green, you know, US Open, it's hard to get up and down. I was 7 over the first 7 holes. And by the end of the tournament, I finished 5 over. I came 16th, and I got into Masters. So I just knew that, hey, I'm doing things okay. I've had a bit of crappy luck. I made a couple of mistakes, but I know how to fix this, and I did. So you've got to remember, you know, a round is 18 holes and a tournament's 72 holes. So there's always a way back. And I liked what Bob said. I do something with that with my kids as well, the college kids and that. Because, you know, I found this interesting later on tour, is that growing up, they had a few scoreboards around. You didn't know what you were coming, but on PGA Tour, there's a scoreboard with your head on it on every green. You see where everyone is. You're tied for 59th. And you've hit 2.8 greens out of the last 5. You know, it has every stat on it. And we didn't have that growing up. So what I kind of found is that was a bit disturbing to me, being out on the course. I didn't really want to know all that unless it was right at the pointy end of the tournament. I knew I had to birdie or do something. I didn't want to know that I needed to birdie 3 of the last 5 to make the cut or something like that. I just wanted to play golf. But what I would do is what Bob said, is I would get these guys, these younger kids, I'd say, look, we're going to evaluate the course. So just using my home course as an example, I think I should be 1 under after 3 holes, because the first hole's a par 5 that I can reach or near enough. It's a birdie hole, solid par 3, and then a difficult par 4 because of the uphill on the green. So I'm 1 under, and then my next 3 holes, kind of the same scenario. I'd be 1 under. Maybe 7, 8, 9, I'd say even par is a good thing. So I would split the course up into 6 groups of 3.
Yep.
And my goal was to be 1 under. If I was 1 over, it didn't matter, because on the 4th tee, I'd be back to 0 again. And I'd be just playing the next 3 holes, trying to shoot my goal of 1 under. And maybe I shoot 2 under on those holes and I get back. So I think it's hard to look at the overall aspect of a round, because we've always heard it's 1 shot at a time, and you can't change what happened, and you can't do anything about what's coming. So it's only that shot that you can play at that time. And I think people get too wrapped up in where they are, whether it's good or bad. And it's why, your average golfer, let's say an 18 handicap's never broken 85 or something, and he gets on the 17th tee, and John, his buddy, says, hey, Paul, he goes,
right,
two pars, you're going to break 80. Well, what's he going to do? Right? He starts thinking ahead, and he starts thinking about it.
He's making triple.
Yeah.
Right, and he hasn't done that all day. So it takes a lot of different ways to manage yourself around a golf course, which I don't think a lot of people understand that the pros are so good at. Like, I was a reasonably fast player. I didn't muck around, but I would get paired with two of the slowest players in my lifetime, like every Thursday and Friday, and we'd be on the clock because they're so slow, and it would drive me nuts. But I would do something stupid, like, this is actually really stupid, but it's kind of clever at the same time, is that when I was standing around waiting, I wouldn't bother myself with them or anything. I would look at the trees or the mountains or whatever's out there, and I would pretend that my nose was a pencil, and I would sit there and I would do this. And I'm telling you, I would basically draw around the trees with my nose, like pretend I'm drawing the trees or the mountains, to take my mind off what the heck was going on, that I wouldn't get disturbed. I thought, this is pretty cool. I'm drawing trees and I'm not paying any attention to anything else. So it's actually really stupid, but it's actually quite clever at the same time, because then my kid would go, hey, it's your shot. And I go, all right, what do we got? And then I'd do my thing, and 15 seconds later I'd hit the shot. So there's a lot of things you got to manage. And, that was more a scenario when I played with slow players. Or maybe I had that 6-footer for par and I didn't want to think about it because I was third to putt. So there's all these internal games that you play that most people would not know about. I don't know. I might have made a video about that for my members site, but I've never told anyone else that.
So it's funny. We have a guy that plays in our group at Champions, and he's a really good player, but he's super slow and mostly slow over the ball. Like, he's frozen over the ball. And I'm a quick player, but I've gotten to the point where I can't even look at him anymore. The amount of anxiety I have staring at him, waiting for him to draw the club back, is ridiculous. So I literally turn my back, and I'm so much calmer for doing so.
All right.
I'm not drawing pictures with my nose, but it's kind of the same thing.
Hey, Bradley, I've grown up in this game. Like I said, I've heard a lot of things. I've never heard that, but I may have to steal that. Maybe
that's a good one.
Excuse me. I wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier at the top of the show about you being a great fairway wood player. And I've got this thing that my mindset's changed over the years where, the set makeup. Most people driver 3-wood, this, that. I've told a lot of people, I don't want you to have a 3-wood in the bag. Your club head speed is not a good match for that, with uneven lies and craziness out there. And you think you can hit it. Long story short, I want them to concentrate more on a 4-wood, 5-wood, let's say, and hybrids the way they are today. But what would you, just in general, can you help convey to the amateur golfer with your expertise in fairway woods that can help them?
I don't really know. I think one of the things is, growing up with persimmon clubs, you had to kind of flush them out of the middle because, the old bias, if you hit it off the toe, the ball would hook like crazy, and off the heel it would cut. So I think I learned to be precise with those clubs at a young age. And then over the years, the fairway woods didn't get me, obviously. So to me, it's kind of the similar club. But driver's a totally different beast because it's this big now that, it's very different to what we grew up with or learned from. But I think the important thing about fairway woods is, obviously, there's enough loft on it to get it in the air. People don't believe that. They look at it and they look at a 3-wood and it starts looking, like there's no loft on it. But there is. There's 13 or 15 or however much they have on it now. And it's not necessarily a sweeping motion. There is still some down on a fairway wood that you've got to hit slightly down on it at least. But I think the main important thing for fairway woods is obviously to not lift it, but you've got to keep accelerating through to the finish. Most people kind of stall out. They try and do something to the ball rather than just letting the ball get in the way of a good aggressive follow through that you wrap the club around your neck. I think, and that's important for all full swings, but I think with a fairway wood, that's very important because I think people just get scared. And like you said, a 3-wood for some people, if they don't have the swing speed, a 4 or 5 wood's a better option. It's not really much different. They might carry it about the same and maybe not roll as far, but they're going to be more consistent looking down at it. Hybrids, for me, I don't like hybrids. I've never been able to hit them for some reason, but so I would have a 5-wood in my bag or a long iron instead of that. I always joke that people go, "You don't have a hybrid?" I said, "No, they're all in my garden holding the tomato plants up because I just can't hit any of them for some reason." The larger shape head with all the mass at the back, the club's trying to do this, and that's not how my swing works. So they just don't. I top them or hook the heck out of them. So I kind of avoid.
I think the hybrid, like I got this what they call a UW utility wood. It's kind of like a hybrid from Callaway, but they gave me the option of getting it 1 degree flat because I've had the same issues with hooking hybrids, and I think in general they make them for the random guy who has trouble losing everything right, and they make them super upright, and
100% agree.
And they hook.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But that equipment's a whole other issue. There's a lot of different stuff going on with all that, but using that as an example, it takes self-awareness and it takes a lot of courage to do some things. But when I won the Australian Masters in 1993, I actually only had 13 clubs in my bag.
No,
and that was by choice. I don't know if anyone's ever done that before, that they haven't had the full 14 in their, even just carrying one around ceremonial. I had a 3-wood that I didn't like at the time, so I left it in the house, and I had a lob wedge, which I hated. I basically went driver, putter, 1 iron through sand iron. So I had 13 clubs because I didn't want to be tempted to hit the other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't working. And lo and behold, I won. So there's a lot of choices that people would query, like Mickelson using 2 drivers several years back, whatever, can't remember the reason he did it, but I think he won the Bell South, had 2 different drivers.
Yeah, one was a hook, one was a fade.
Right. So he's got to drop something else out.
Yeah.
I don't know how true this is. I think there was a famous quote. Someone said Ben Hogan didn't have a 7-iron. That some of these legends grow. He didn't have a 7-iron for the US Open or something.
I heard that too.
Yeah. And his quote was, "Well, there's no 7-iron shots at Merion."
Yeah.
Or something like that. So that takes, that's pretty ballsy move to do stuff like that, because you could miss hit one and actually need a 7-iron. But there's, you got to play within your limits, and understanding your game is a big deal.
Hey, brother, could you touch on your 70-30 rule?
What was that? Sorry, 70-30?
Yeah. Could you touch on that?
Involving what? Fill me in again.
I thought I read somewhere where or it's something about your course man.
No, the one I would be thinking of, we'll come back to that in a second, but the one I'm thinking of is in the golf swing. This was something I did with Brendon Todd, where I used a 7 out of 10. So there's your 70. I used a 3 out of 10 in his grip, and I used a grip and a 2 or 3 out of a 10 in his arms. And that was kind of his go-to thing, in that I put the most pressure in his feet, the second most pressure in his hands, and then everything else was loose. So basically he had his feet touching the ground most, hands holding the club second most, and everything else was free to move. And that was something that he said as soon as he did that, he could move properly, because he would almost do that all ass backwards. He would get tight in his arms and soft in his grip and have nothing in his feet. So we kind of built all that around the force of things. Because remember, when you swing, all those are actually going to get larger. You know, a 7 out of 10 when you push is going to become an 8 or a 9. And a 5 out of 10 in your grip is going to become a 6 or a 7. And then, but basically the logic of it was free all this up, get a grip on that, because that club's trying to swing at 100 and something miles an hour. You better be hanging on to it and use the ground the most so you can push you into the ground and stay in the ground. Because most people start off too light in their feet. And then when that push comes in transition, their body, it doesn't like it because it's gone from nothing to a lot, and then they lose it again. So having it at a standard up here, when you push and it becomes a bit more, you're less inclined to give that pressure up. You're going to want to keep utilizing it. And I know that's not the answer. I just went off on a tangent, but that was all I could.
That's good.
That's all I could think of on the 77.3. We called it 7.52. So.
Well, let me ask a question off of that. Would that free somebody up to be able to turn more?
Absolutely. Everything, because they're not stiff in their shoulders.
I almost choked, Alan. I almost choked.
Is he talking about you?
We got Alan on Sportsbox, and
right.
He broke some records there. He got that shoulder turn up to 69 degrees.
Telling you, I'll say it again. When we had Sportsbox on here, I had the same turn as John Rahm. So let's not forget that, Andy.
Yeah, I'm not.
But sure. I do want to. I do. It's a valid question for Bradley.
It should, particularly if you're using the ground stronger. You've got a better base, correct?
Absolutely.
A better resistance. You can move around. If you're holding onto the club a bit firmer, you control the club. Like, you're not going to slack it off at the top with a loose grip or anything, and you're not going to grab it so tight that you can't move. And then because your arms are softer, you can obviously turn more. So they all go hand in hand, 100%.
Yeah, I'll just do a shameless plug here. I'm the owner of Bradley's Down Under board, which is a really simple but effective training tool to get people to understand what it's like to have the proper pressure on your feet throughout the golf swing. And we'll share where people can get a hold of all the information on your website, as well as the Down Under board and any other thing that you offer.
Yeah, the board is great. It's a very simple tool, like you said, but as far as I'm concerned, just, I get sent a few things and I watch a few things, or people send me stuff to look at. I think the Down Under board is probably the only training aid that you can use from set up to finish. Most things are concentrating on some area of the swing.
Yeah.
You've got the strap on your arm, but you can't keep your arm strapped the whole time, and things like that. But the Down Under board teaches you to use the pressures. And the main logic behind it is, like I said, if you don't have enough pressure, you start wafting. You lose pressure, you try and put pressure in, you lose it again. And basically the board, when you practice with it between your feet, if you think about throwing a ball or shooting a basketball, your knees are flexed, and then you extend out of your pelvis and your abductor muscles, and then you kind of release the ball, whether it's shooting, throwing, whatever. Now, if you do that in golf, when your knees are flexed, if you start to extend out of your pelvis and your abductors, which wants to happen because that's what your body does when they're flexed, you are getting further from the ball. So now you got to throw the club or the right arm or something down at the ball to hit it. So the board really trains you. It's like going to the gym, really. It's training that area of your body to not early extend, to not jump away as soon. And because you've got the resistance, you can really rip your body off it on the way through and get the extension, later in the swing, where you don't kink your back, you stand up straight, you wrap it around your neck, all that stuff. It's pretty cool thing. And that was basically how I taught Brendon to use, Brendon Todd to do the 7 pressure. And interestingly enough, you'll like this one, Bob, I think. When I hit a shot, so let's say I hit my 7-iron 168 yards or so. Before I take the club away, I push my feet to a 7 out of 10 pressure. And if I swing everything matches and works. My sequence, my timing, my pressure. I'll hit that ball very close to 168. Now, if I want to hit one shorter, if I only have 160 yards, instead of swinging softer, swinging shorter, I reduce my feet down to a 5, and then I make my same swing. And because I don't have as much force down below or resistance, I can't release as hard, I can't pull as hard, so I knock 7, 8 yards off the shot. If I want to hit it a little bit further, I push my feet to a 9. So the 5 becomes a 6, the 7 becomes an 8, and the 9 becomes a 10 when you're swinging. So you've got less force or more force to release and pull from, but you're still actually making the same swing. So it's much easier than saying, how far do I need to go to take 5 yards off, or how soft do I need to swing, or trying to swing it so hard that you can't do anything. It's very cool way to do it. I've had many people show me that they can do it almost immediately once they understand it, but they go, I've never heard this anywhere before. So again, that's kind of one of the special things that I think I get from being a player that I can expand on, let others kind of learn.
So just to clarify, when you talk about pressure in your feet, you're talking about inward pressure, correct?
Or downward. Well, when you've got the board there, it's inward because you're training your pelvis to not do all that jumping. But I think later on, a good player, you can just push it into the ground. If you think that's where I learned it. I learned this when I was 12 because like I said, I walked around with Greg Norman. If you remember Norman from the early 80s, mid 80s, before he took the club away, there was a distinct pushing. He would push his feet into the ground. If you go back and watch old video of him, that's exactly what he's doing. He taught me how to do it. Maybe not to that extent. I might have put my own little extra spin on it for the different yardages, but he taught me to do that. And with a driver, because I'm not trying to hit a driver 231 or 242, I use a 9 pressure because I'm trying to hit my driver as far as I can. So I think those things really helped me be a really good driver of the ball and long iron fairway wood player because I understood the pressures of using the ground correctly. I was not just pushing down and jumping up. I was pushing down vertically and then going horizontal in my feet. So I was staying down in the shot, which meant I didn't have to straighten this right arm. I could keep it reasonably flex still and not disrupt the low point or the club face. So that was one of the things indirectly I learned from the Shark when I was young, and I've used it ever since.
So Bradley, I'd ask this question before I hit play, which is I have noticed, and Australian Masters was obviously just on, great turnout. But even with Liv, and this is going to play right for Andy here in a second, even for Liv, it seems like the Australia had the most support for any of their tournaments. Is there any? Can you lay a finger as to why that's is? Are they just the Australian people just that appreciative having the tour players make the trip down there, or is there something specific, or is it just the fact that it's cool down there?
Well, there's actually a story about Australia that people come from everywhere to watch 2 spiders crawl up a wall, basically. And anything that's going on, they're into. And because we're starved on the other side of the world of all those big performers coming there, like Liv was huge for Australia because maybe every now and then, we had Tiger come for the Open one year and the Masters one year. This year we had Rory come for the Open. But Liv had Rahm and Cam Smith and, all those guys. So that was a big deal. I know friends from Melbourne and Queensland, they all went to Adelaide to watch it because they want to see good golf. And I think the same with Rory. And obviously you've got your Adam Scott that goes all the time. He does great. Cam Smith all the time. And I think that's very cool that they let Cam Smith play because he can't play on the PGA Tour. But Australia says, hey, he's one of our guys. We want him there. We want him to play. There's no big segregation in that. It's golf, right? But I think Australians, we have Melbourne's amazing too because we have the Australian Open tennis. We have the Formula One Grand Prix. They get 90,000 people at every football AFL game that there is. The cricket has 100,000 on the first day in Melbourne. It's just Melbourne just loves sport, and I'm not saying the other places don't, but Melbourne, that would be a normal thing. They probably got more people with Rory being there. Liv was massive because of all the stars they'd never seen play. They'd never seen Patrick Reed play or Joaquin Neiman and all those guys. So it was a big deal. And I think you probably saw on the Australian Open how appreciative the galleries are. Like they're very switched on. They kind of understand the gist of it. Like if you go to a football game or a cricket game, they're yelling abuse at everyone and they're doing it. But at the golf, there was none of that, right? They understood that golf is, hey, I'm going to shut up while this guy's hitting, and I'm going to clap or yell if he hits a good shot, and I'm not going to boo or say anything bad if he hits a bad shot. And, they're very smart, and they just love seeing top-notch sportsmen come and play.
Andy, did you see how I partially segued for this? Boom.
Perfect. It's all part of the Live Golf Report.
All
right?
part of the Live Golf Report.
And
yeah.
the Live Golf Report's going to be short, sweet, and not full of facts this week. So
short as John Rahm's backswing?
Yeah, shorter than John Rahm's backswing.
Shorter than Alan's shoulder turn?
Yeah. Well, it would be done by now, so maybe a little longer than that. So there's some news, rumors, whatever you want to call it, that Brooks Koepka is potentially in negotiations to try to get out of his contract and live and get back to playing on the PGA Tour. And I think it's interesting. I know the live people that this wouldn't necessarily be coming from them. They always, are pumping rumors out there on the positive side for live. But this is definitely something that has people's eyeballs open and they're looking around the corner to see what's going to come of this, if anything.
I've only heard what I've read. I don't know. But he is contracted through the end of 26, apparently. So does that mean he's still going to play? I'm sure. But there's always been rumors about Brooks that he's not happy and out there and such and such. And I could see that. I think he's kind of the guy. I don't know him hardly any well at all, but I think he'd be the kind of guy who's much happier not flying in a plane all around the world and doing stuff like maybe they're doing. He's happier in Florida and playing some tournaments and gearing up for the majors. So maybe there's something to it. But there's another rumor today that Siwoo Kim's going to live. So
I read that too.
Who knows? Like there's a lot of rumors.
That's the counter rumor to Brooks living.
Right. Yeah. There's a rumor that I'm going to coach every team for $100 million, but
there you go.
That's not true.
Is it time for the hot seat?
It is. It's getting a little warm in here.
All right. So Bradley, easy 9 questions, just quick answers. You don't have to put a whole lot of thought into it. So question 1, what is your best 18-hole score?
In a tournament, I've shot 10 under a couple of times, once in England, once in Australia. But my lowest score was in a pro-am in Wichita, Kansas. I shot 60. And I parred the last.
That's golfing your ball.
Yeah, that is.
So that was 12 under.
Like we have some guests on here that don't have your playing background, so the answers are a little bit different. but not less interesting as we go. So what's your favorite golf course you've ever played?
It's still Royal Melbourne. I've played it. I was fortunate, a minute drive away. But we did a lot of state team practice there. And I knew the pro really well, and he would let me come and play there at times. So I've probably played there well over 100 times in my life, and which is quite a lot considering I've lived in America for the last 30 years. So if I had still lived 15 minutes away, I'm sure that would be up near 1,000 by now. I just think it has everything. It has obviously it's positional. You can cut some corners, get a greater advantage of an angle in. The greens are firm. You don't have to spin it back. You can bounce it up. You can feed it off slopes. If you get in the wrong position, it's almost impossible to get up and down, but you also can. And the design of it is, it looks amazing. The bunker's right on the edge of the green. And it's just typically, not so much now with the ball and the club going so far, but at one point there, maybe up to 20 years ago, no matter which way the wind blew, you would hit every club in your bag any day. And that's a good test when you can hit every club in your bag, no matter which wind direction. Every hole is, built perfectly to ask the biggest questions of you.
Okay, now which is the golf course on your bucket list that you haven't played?
All right, that's a good question. So I've never played Pine Valley and I've never played Cypress Point. Ian Baker Finch always tells me National Golf Links is his favorite, and I've never played that. So I've never played Marion. So I need an East Coast trip with a quick Learjet to
Just
California.
come up and see me. I'm up near Philadelphia. Come on up.
I need to get and play some of them one day. I know a few people that are members there.
Yes, you do.
I've just never been able to do it yet. So I'd love to.
Okay, so who's your favorite golfer of all time?
Always Greg Norman. I know he gets a bad rap from a lot of people, but he was the king when I was growing up. I modeled a lot of my stuff off him. I was fortunate to, meet him and know him. He dragged me out of the gallery and let me walk around in tournaments, and had my birthday cake with him because our birthdays the same day. And
January 10th.
February 10. Yeah, I played a practice round with him at Augusta. Like, he's my man. I loved Seve. I didn't see a lot of Seve. I did get to play with Seve once, and that was awesome. But that was when his game was in decline. But it was, I got a great picture of him and me walking off the 18th green, and he was probably the most charismatic. But you could say that about Norman too. I got to play with Tiger once on a Sunday, which was pretty awesome. But always the Shark.
Good answer. Okay, so what's the most cringeworthy look on the golf course?
Damn. Striped pants with floral shirts or something like that. Like,
done.
You can't do that.
Yep.
Something has to kind of match.
Yeah.
You can't just pick out your best pair of pants and your best shirt and put them together.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite halfway house indulgence?
Well, meat pie in Australia. Don't get many of them over here, but that was meat pie or a sausage roll at the turn. That was mandatory.
Good. All right. Favorite post-round beverage?
I'm not a beer drinker, really. I do like having a bourbon. I used to like Southern Comfort. Something like that'll do me. I don't like drinking them straight. I got to have a little mixer with it of some sort.
All right.
Q mixer.
A Q mixer. We can help you out with that. Okay, so we switched out question 7 just for you. So what's your favorite golf swing of all time?
My favorite golf swing? Probably not what you would think. The typical choice is Snead or Hogan or something like that. But I don't think many people would pick this one. Gary Player. And the reason being is it was very fundamentally sound. He did everything that I teach or talk about. The foot drag, the release, the slotting. But the reason, even though sometimes it looks ungainly because he falls over at the end and that, for that golf swing to fly all around the world from South Africa to go to America, and then he's flown into Australia, got there the morning of a tournament and shot 62 and then won, like things like that. You can't have a crappy golf swing if you're going to do that. Get straight off a plane, go win the tournament. So I think his swing is very underestimated. It's not the prettiest, but it was very effective.
So for all the people we've ever asked that question to, yours is a unique answer there.
Thank you. I thought it might be.
Yeah. I think I read something on social about that too. Okay, I love this question. So, describe the best shot you've ever hit. Think about it. Time, place, and circumstance.
Well, yeah, for all those things, probably the 72nd hole of the 93 Australian Masters. So I was one behind. I was about to go two behind Peter Senior because he was about to birdie as I was hitting my shot in. I was two groups ahead of him. I had a 3-iron into the 18th hole, back when you had to hit 3 irons into the par fours. The wind was left to right, and I hit this draw against the wind. The pin was hitting back left, and it kind of hooked against the wind, got up nice and high with the 3-iron, fell to about 2 foot, tapped it in, and then he would 3-putt the 18th hole 20 minutes later, and then I beat him in a playoff. So for the shot, the degree of difficulty of the way the wind was and where the pin was and the club I had in hand and the situation, I would say that one. It didn't win me the tournament, but it got me eventually in the playoff where I would win the tournament.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that question because it is. I mean, you probably hit similar shots in your career, but time, place, circumstance, all that stuff comes into play there.
100%.
Yeah. So what do you cherish most about the game of golf?
I think no one's mastered it. I think that's a pretty cool thing, and that no matter how good you are, no one's, the next day you can be awful at it or not as good. So I think it's the hardest game to master, which makes you realize that you always can be better, and you're not gonna. And I don't like letting things. I don't let my kids beat me at games, so I'm not going to let golf beat me either. It's like, not that I play or practice very much anymore, but when I do go out and play, I still kind of enjoy it, and knowing that I can still hit some shots like that 3-iron on the last hole that means nothing now, but I can still hit some of those shots. I think that's the greatest thing that I get out of golf. It's more of a personal challenge than hanging out with your friends. A lot of people might say that, or travel in the world was pretty cool. That's a great experience, but that's what I think.
Oh, great answer. And the obligatory extra holes question is, how many hole-in-ones do you have to your name?
So I have 11. It doesn't, because I say that and I go, it's not really that many, and people go, holy cow, I've never had one. I've had one. I don't think 11's a lot compared to how many shots I've hit on par threes in my life. But I do have a good stat on that. I'll try and get this right. I've had 2 in Australia. I've had 1 in New Zealand. I've had 1 in Scotland. I've had 1 in the British Open in England, or the Open. I've had 1 in Spain. I've had 1 in Canada. I've had 2 in America. I've had 1 in Japan, and I've probably missed 1 somewhere else. So I've had them in like 7 or 8 countries.
That is cool. That's really neat.
In multiple continents.
Yes.
Well, you survived the Quiet Please hot seat, and we appreciate your answers. Alan?
Yes.
Shall we 18th tee it?
I tried to get the flag, but my head's in the way. So we'll just we'll do it this way. Bobby, 18th green. Final thoughts.
Okay, I'll keep it short and sweet. Bradley, thanks so much for being here. We need you back because we barely scratched the surface on really the instruction and coaching, which is what we like to dive into here. And speaking of that, something you mentioned earlier in the show reminded me of the sort of phrase quote from Lee Trevino, I believe, where Trevino said, he'll only take a lesson from a guy that can beat him. So,
quote.
Yeah, we do know some prominent instructors out there, but not because you're on the show, but you're the type of guy I would take the lesson from. You've been in the mix, you've been in the cauldron, you hit that 3-iron, Like, that's what I gravitate to an instructor. I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Mr.
And
Hydor.
I will come on anytime. Whenever I can do it, I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you for that.
Might become a regular. I might get my own little box or anything.
Hey, you can be a regular.
We can make that happen.
I might even get one of those blue.
You got to have a nickname or
You're
a
in.
personal indicator.
You're in.
No, well, thank you so much for coming on, Bradley. And you know, that's the fun about this show, is to have some people come on that can really share some experience and some great things that they've done. And for you uniquely as a player and a coach, I think it's pretty awesome that you're able to share some of those things with us, and we really appreciate that. And make sure that you let everybody know where they can find your, online. They can do some online coaching student work with you, which I've done, which is great. And they can get access to the Down Under board and all the other things that you're doing. So make sure everybody knows how to get you kind of discovered there.
Senior Player of the Year, you were saying earlier, right?
Oh, sure.
Was it Texas State or Houston area?
The state of Texas.
State of Texas. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I had a little bit to do with it. Not a lot. But...
You definitely did. You definitely did. It came at the right time, I can tell you that much.
Bradley, final thought?
Yeah, I enjoyed being on. I've got tons more stories, lots more interesting stuff. So we could go weeks on end doing this stuff. I kind of enjoy it. But it's nice to reminisce, and my memory's still there at the minute where I can remember most of the stuff I did. So that was fun. And for Andy, I'm talking about my websites, bradleyhughesgolf.com. And I do have a members site where I have about 500 or 600 videos at the moment, which is actually getting upgraded. This reopening, or it's getting upgraded like January the 2nd. So I think that's an awesome spot to stop and watch, because I go into a lot more extra detail on that site than I would on a YouTube, where it's kind of giving stuff away you get all those questions back at you why aren't you telling me this or that? But so the members site's bradleyhughesgolf-members.com, and then Facebook's Bradley Hughes Golf and B Hughes Golf on Instagram. But I try and stay pretty active on those two. I think it's important to get some stuff out there. Some of it's great, some of it probably goes over people's heads, some of it half the people don't agree with, but we all think we're right, but I think I am right.
Well, the cool thing is you're not cookie cutter. Like, you're not doing the same stuff that everyone else is doing. So to me, that means that you're well thought out, that you've kind of discovered some things, and you're there to share it with people who care to know.
Yeah, and I do have options. I'm not stuck on one thing. I know there's a lot of ways you can swing a club, but there's certain physics and dynamics that have to be there to get to the higher grade levels of playing competitive golf. So that's where I'm trying and get at, that I teach the simple stuff that's very effective.
Awesome.
So my final thought is that I actually have two. One is I have to just share this comment because it kind of falls under a little bit of even this don't be that guy. Saw this one on social today. A 2 on a par 5 is called an albatross. A 1 on a par 4 is called a hole-in-one. Response was yes, but one is 3 under and the other is only 2 under par.
I looked at that. You shared it in our text group, and that is the perfect don't be that guy.
Please don't keep my scorecard. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly.
Bradley, I saved this till the end, so I'm going to lobby for that golf lesson when I do get to Greenville, because I believe, hang your hat at Holly Tree down in beautiful Simpsonville, South Carolina. So the next time I'm down for a Swamp Rabbits game to see my son,
there you go.
I might have to give you a call and go for 70-degree shoulder turn.
Let's do it. We can make it happen. Might even get to 75, I think.
Nice. Until next week, folks. Bradley, again, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.